Imagine stepping outside and immediately feeling the heat hit your skin. There are no air conditioners, no refrigerators, no cold drinks waiting in the kitchen, no swimming pool, no modern clothes designed to keep you cool, just the sun overhead and miles of hot, dry land around you. For ancient humans, extreme heat wasn't something they could escape by simply going indoors. They had to live with it, and this wasn't unusual. Some of the environments where early humans lived were extremely hot and dry. Evidence from Eastern Africa shows that parts of the region were already experiencing very high temperatures millions of years ago, while recent research suggests that Homo erectus was able to survive in hyper-arid environments around 1 million years ago. So how did they do it? How could a human body survive under a scorching sun without modern technology? How did they find enough water? How did they avoid overheating? And why did humans eventually develop some of the best cooling abilities of any large mammal? The answer involves our bodies, our behavior, and one of the most important resources humans have ever searched for: water. To understand how ancient humans survived extreme heat, we first need to understand what heat does to the body. Your body constantly produces heat. Every time your muscles move, your heart beats, or your cells use energy, heat is produced. Normally, your body gets rid of that heat through several mechanisms. But when the environment becomes extremely hot, the problem gets much harder. The hotter the air becomes, the harder it is for the body to lose heat. And if you're moving around under direct sunlight, things become even more difficult. This would have been a serious challenge for early humans, especially because many of the environments they lived in could shift between wet and dry conditions. Water sources could disappear, vegetation could become scarce, and animals could move long distances searching for food and water. Researchers studying early human environments have found evidence that water availability played an important role in where hominins lived and moved across Eastern Africa. Groundwater-fed springs and other persistent water sources may have provided important refuges during dry periods. So ancient humans couldn't simply wander anywhere they wanted. They needed to understand the landscape. They had to know where water could be found, where shade was available, where food could be located, and how far they could travel before needing to find water again. In other words, surviving heat wasn't just about having a strong body. It was about knowing where to go. But humans had another advantage, and it was something they carried everywhere: their own bodies. Humans are unusually good at cooling themselves through sweating. When sweat evaporates from the skin, it carries heat away from the body. And because humans have relatively little body hair compared with many other primates, sweat can evaporate across a large area of exposed skin. This might not sound impressive until you compare us with other animals. Many mammals have to rely heavily on panting or finding shade to cool down. Humans can continue moving while sweating and losing heat. This may have been especially useful for early humans living in hot environments. Our ancestors also developed body proportions that helped with heat management. Homo erectus, for example, had a relatively tall and slender body with long legs. The Smithsonian notes that this body shape would have helped dissipate heat in hot, dry environments. Longer limbs provide more surface area relative to body mass. That means more area through which heat can be lost. And this wasn't just about standing around in the heat. It may have helped humans remain active. Early humans could walk long distances, track animals, search for food, move between water sources, and travel across open landscapes. But sweating comes with a major problem. You lose water, and that meant the ability to cool yourself was only useful if you could replace the water you were losing. Imagine walking through a landscape where the temperature is climbing. You're sweating, you're thirsty, and you don't know where the next water source is. You can't simply open a bottle. You need to remember where the nearest reliable water source is. This made knowledge of the landscape incredibly important. Ancient humans likely depended on rivers, lakes, springs, wetlands, and other sources of fresh water when they were available. And researchers have found evidence suggesting that groundwater-fed springs could have remained important even when other water sources became scarce. This means a seemingly ordinary spring could become incredibly valuable. It provided drinking water, It could attract animals. Animals meant food. Vegetation could grow nearby, and vegetation could provide shade. So, one water source could support an entire ecosystem. For humans, knowing where these places were could make the difference between being able to travel through an area and being forced to avoid it. And this may help explain why early humans were able to occupy some extremely challenging environments. They weren't simply wandering randomly across the landscape. They were following resources: water, food, shade, and sometimes other people. Because there was another way to deal with extreme heat. Don't fight the heat when you don't have to. Imagine standing under the sun at the hottest part of the day. Now imagine having the choice to move during a cooler period instead. For ancient humans, changing when you moved could be just as important as changing where you moved. We can't know exactly how every prehistoric group scheduled its activities, but the basic principle is simple. When the environment becomes dangerous, reducing exposure can reduce the stress on the body. Shade could help. Trees and vegetation could provide relief from direct sunlight, and archaeological evidence suggests that early hominins sometimes concentrated their activities in more wooded areas, where shade and water were available. Shelters could help too. A simple structure doesn't need to have walls and air conditioning to make a difference. Blocking direct sunlight can make a shaded space much more comfortable than standing outside under the sun. And then there was movement. Humans could choose routes that passed near water. They could stop and rest. They could avoid unnecessary exposure during the hottest conditions. And they could change their behavior depending on the environment. This flexibility was extremely important, because ancient Africa wasn't always the same. Some periods were wetter, others were much drier. Lakes expanded and disappeared. Grasslands changed. Woodlands shifted. And human populations had to adapt. Recent research on Homo erectus at Olduvai Gorge suggests that these early humans repeatedly occupied landscapes that became extremely dry, using river and pond environments as important ecological focal points. They weren't just surviving one kind of environment, they were adapting to change. There's another strange ability humans developed. We can walk and run for surprisingly long distances, and in hot conditions, this could become a major advantage. Humans don't have thick fur covering most of their bodies. We sweat heavily, and our body shape allows heat to escape efficiently. That combination can make humans unusually capable of sustained movement in hot environments. This doesn't mean ancient humans could simply run through the desert without consequences. They still needed water, they still needed shade, and extreme heat could still be deadly. But the ability to keep moving while releasing heat through sweat gave humans an unusual advantage. It may also have helped with hunting. One proposed strategy is persistence hunting, where humans use endurance and heat management to follow an animal until it becomes exhausted. But scientists debate how important this strategy was in human evolution, so we shouldn't imagine every prehistoric hunt happening this way. What we can say is that humans evolved an impressive combination of traits for dealing with heat: sweating, relatively little body hair, long legs, endurance, and the ability to use behavior and technology to change the environment around us. And this combination didn't just help humans survive hot climates, it helped them eventually spread far beyond Africa. The incredible thing about ancient humans is that they didn't have one single solution to extreme heat. They had many. Their bodies helped them cool down. Their knowledge helped them find water. Their behavior helped them avoid unnecessary heat. Their shelters provided shade. Their tools helped them access food and resources. And their cooperation allowed groups to survive conditions that would have been extremely difficult for individuals. Early humans weren't simply stronger than the environment. They were adaptable. And that may have been one of humanity's greatest advantages. We didn't evolve to live in only one perfect environment. We learned how to change our behavior when the environment changed. We could move. We could innovate. We could cooperate. And eventually, we could create our own environments. Today, when it's 40 degrees outside, we can walk into an air-conditioned building. We can open a refrigerator. We can turn on a fan. We can drink cold water. Ancient humans had none of that, but they had something else. Millions of years of adaptation, and an incredible ability to figure things out. So, the next time you're standing in the heat, sweating and wishing you could escape, remember that our ancestors faced the same problem long before air conditioning existed. They just had to solve it themselves. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about how ancient humans lived, survived, and adapted to the world around them, subscribe to Factoria and turn on notifications. We've got plenty more stories about ancient humans, human evolution, science, and the incredible problems our ancestors had to solve. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.